From the chilling fate of a USC student who got into the wrong Uber to the brutal murder of a 19-year-old at the hands of a jealous ex, these are the most bone-chilling, nightmare-inducing cases that will haunt you long after the lights go out. The murder of Samantha Josephson is a chilling case, not just because of the horrific crime itself, but also the tragic series of events that led to it. Samantha, a bright and ambitious student at the University of South Carolina, had been having a rough day. To lift her spirits, she decided to spend the night out with her friends, hoping for a fun evening to shake off the bad mood. But what was supposed to be a simple night out turned into her worst nightmare. She unknowingly got into a car she thought was her Uber, a mistake that cost her life. Born and raised in New Jersey, Samantha had always been a driven young woman. After high school, she set her sights on the University of South Carolina, a decision that worried her parents at first. They weren't keen on sending their daughter so far from home, but eventually they agreed. It was an opportunity for Samantha to experience a different part of the country. Plus, USC was considered safer than many other schools. She majored in political science and had big dreams of becoming an international lawyer. Her hard work paid off. She secured a full scholarship to Drexel University School of Law and a partial one to Rutgers Law School. She had her future planned out, and everything was falling into place. Samantha had a boyfriend named Greg, whom she met at a party. Greg, a senior, had graduated a year earlier and moved back to Mount Pleasant, about a 3-hour drive from the university. Despite the distance, their relationship remained strong. They made time for each other, attending football games together, and staying connected through constant texting and video calls. They had even planned their future together. But all those plans were shattered on March 29, 2019, the night Samantha was last seen alive. That evening, Samantha's friends had planned a small celebration for her. She was just weeks away from finishing her degree, and they wanted to mark the occasion. Greg was supposed to join, but he was back home and encouraged her to enjoy herself without him. Samantha had received bad news earlier that day. A family member was sick. She wasn't in the best mood, but she figured a night out with friends might help. She spent most of the evening at the Bird Dog Bar in Columbia's Five Points district, chatting with her friends and texting Greg. He even convinced her to have fun despite his absence. They were so close that they shared their phone locations for safety. By 2 a.m., Samantha decided it was time to call it a night. She messaged Greg, telling him she was heading home in an Uber. Though it was late, her apartment was just a few miles away. She didn't want to end the night early for her friends, so she stepped outside the bar alone to wait for her ride. That's when the black Chevrolet Impala pulled up. At 2:09 a.m., a car that looked similar to the Uber she ordered pulled up to the curb. Her ride was supposed to be a dark-colored Dodge, but in her tired and emotional state, she didn't notice the difference. Thinking it was her ride, Samantha got in. By the time she realized she was in the wrong car, it was too late. The driver, later identified as Nathaniel Rowland, didn't waste a second. He activated the car's child-proof locks, trapping Samantha inside. Her fear turned to panic as she realized she couldn't open the doors. She texted Greg, telling him she was on her way home, and he continued to track her location on an app they used to keep tabs on each other. Minutes later, something strange happened. Greg saw that Samantha's location was moving southeast, far from her apartment. He tried calling her, but there was no answer. The text he sent remained unread. Then, at 2:40 a.m., Samantha's location suddenly disappeared from the map. Morning came and Samantha hadn't returned home. Her friends, thinking she might have crashed at someone's place, checked her workplace, but she hadn't shown up there either. That's when the panic set in. She was always reliable, never one to just disappear. Something was wrong. The search for Samantha intensified. Greg, worried sick, called her friends, and together they scoured the places she might have gone. But Samantha was nowhere to be found. Then the devastating news came. Around 2:40 a.m., roughly 14 hours after Samantha was last seen, a group of turkey hunters stumbled upon a body in a field 65 miles away. It was Samantha. Her family was shattered. Greg was inconsolable. The night that was meant to lift her spirits had ended in unimaginable horror. A quick police investigation led officers to a black Chevrolet Impala near the scene of her abduction. When they attempted to pull the car over, the driver made a run for it, but he didn't get far. The driver, Nathaniel Rowland, was caught after a brief chase. Inside his car, police found cleaning products, including bleach. They also discovered Samantha's phone on the passenger side, along with her blood under Roland's fingernails. As investigators pieced together the night's events, a horrifying picture emerged. After Samantha got into the Impala, Roland had engaged the child-proof locks, trapping her inside. She must have realized too late that she was in grave danger. Roland, who had deactivated the car's safety features, made sure she had no way out. He drove her 65 miles from the bar to a field, where he carried out his brutal attack. Later, he even attempted to use her bank card at an ATM.
Avenue, where he stopped right around this area. Next, we see the body cam video from Officer Kraft. You can see he approaches the car. He claims he can smell marijuana, then asks for Roland's identification and for him to step out. This is when officers say Roland begins to run away. We're later shown video again from Officer Kraft of him searching Roland's car back at the original stop, where he finds keys with a pink keyring in the driver's door and a cell phone between the driver's seat and a center console.
Despite the mountain of evidence, including surveillance footage, DNA found under his fingernails, and Samantha's blood inside his car, Roland maintained his innocence. He claimed he had nothing to do with her murder. But the evidence told a different story. Samantha's disappearance had sent shockwaves through the community. Her friends, her family, and even Greg were frantic, unable to process what had happened. When Samantha's body was found, the news shattered them. She had her whole life ahead of her, dreams, aspirations, a bright future, and it had all been stolen away. Law enforcement quickly linked Roland to the crime through forensic evidence. Even though his DNA wasn't found on Samantha's body, investigators discovered her blood inside his car, along with the knife used in the attack. DNA under his fingernails also matched Samantha's, a sign that she had tried to fight back, even in her final moments. The evidence was overwhelming. Roland was arrested on March 30th, 2019. He was later convicted of kidnapping and murdering Samantha Josephson and was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. The murder of Maple Batalia is one of those cases that shakes you to your core. A 19-year-old with a future so bright it could blind you, but all of it was ripped away by her jealous, obsessive ex-boyfriend. Maple was born on March 4th, 1992, in Mumbai, India, to Harkirat and Sarbjet Batalia. Like many parents chasing the so-called better life, they moved to Canada, settling in Surrey, British Columbia, among a tight-knit Indian immigrant community. From a young age, Maple had big dreams: fashion, fame, and runways across the world. And guess what? She wasn't just dreaming, she was doing. By 14, she was already modeling, landing gigs in print campaigns and runway shows. That same year, she made her debut at Vancouver Fashion Week. But she wasn't stopping there. Acting school? Check. An agent? Check. Hollywood? That was the next stop. But along with her rise in the fashion world, Maple also fell in love. Enter Gary Dhaliwal, charming from a respected family, and head over heels for her. The guy went all out, flowers, chocolates, the whole romance package. Their relationship wasn't just theirs, it became community gossip, the love story everyone talked about. Even their mothers became best friends. As Maple's career took off, she scored a role in Diary of a Wimpy Kid. Roderick Rules. Small part? Sure. But for her, it was proof. Proof that she was on the right path. But not everyone was celebrating her success. Gary, he wasn't just jealous, he was threatened. The more Maple shined, the more his insecurities swallowed him whole. Suddenly, the sweet boyfriend became controlling, possessive, and downright toxic. He stalked her phone, tracked her every move, and made sure she knew one thing: she belonged to him. Her friend, Natalie Sheck, saw it firsthand. Gary wasn't just jealous, he was obsessed. He belittled her, told her she wasn't pretty or talented enough for Hollywood, and when words weren't enough, he used his fists. On a high school trip, Maple's friends noticed she never took off her sunglasses. Why? She was hiding a black eye, courtesy of Gary. After high school, Gary took over his father's trucking business, while Maple pursued medicine at Simon Fraser University. But by August 2011, she had had enough. She found out Gary was cheating, and that was the final straw. She ended it. She was done with the fights, done with the drama, and ready to focus on her future. But Gary wasn't done with her. He bombarded her with 1,719 texts, some begging, some threatening. If Maple thought breaking up would be the end of it, she was wrong. Gary had already decided. If he couldn't have her, no one would. A few days before her murder, Gary saw Maple at a Tim Hortons with a male friend. And like the insecure man-child he was, he lost it. He punched the guy, shoved Maple into his car, and drove around demanding to see her phone. When he got tired of playing kidnapper, he threw her out. Maple reported him. He was arrested. A restraining order was issued. Did that stop him? Not even close. September 28, 2011. Maple was at the school library studying with friends. Unbeknownst to her, Gary and his friend, Betty, were outside in a white Dodge Charger, circling like vultures. They had been there for hours, watching, waiting. Betty even went inside the library to spy on Maple, reporting back to Gary. At 1:07 a.m., Maple left the library. She walked to her car, completely unaware that she was being hunted. The Dodge pulled up, the window slid down. 5 gunshots shattered the silence. 3 bullets hit Maple before she collapsed to the pavement. But that wasn't enough for Gary. He needed her dead. He got out of the car, pulled a knife, and drove it into her head before speeding off with Betty, making sure the message was clear. She would never belong to anyone else. Paramedics fought to save her. They failed. At 1:39 a.m., Maple Batalia, aspiring actress, model, medical student, beloved daughter and sister, was gone. When police reviewed the crime scene, a crucial clue emerged. That white Dodge Charger speeding away just after gunshots rang out. They traced it to a 2011 model with distinct colorful taillights. Gary's father's rental car. When they found it, it was a treasure trove of evidence. Maple's blood? Check. Gunshot residue on the steering wheel? Check. Bullet casings from the crime scene? Also a match. Not to mention surveillance footage that showed Gary's accomplice, Betty, casually strolling into the library multiple times before the attack. The case may have seemed open and shut, but the punishment? Not so much. Gary was sentenced to life with the possibility of parole after 21 years. Only 21 years. And Betty, who helped carry out the murder, he got just 18 months behind bars. A sentence so light, Maple's family was stunned. They channeled their grief into action, becoming vocal advocates for domestic violence awareness. They teamed up with organizations to educate young people about healthy relationships and the dangers. The tragic story of Ali Kostial is yet another chilling case that sends shivers down the spine. Alexandria Madison Kostial was born in St. Louis, Missouri on September 11, 1997. From a young age, Ali dreamed of attending the University of Mississippi. It wasn't just a school to her, it was a symbol of tradition, history, and of course, football. So in 2016, she finally made it there, pursuing a degree in business and marketing. But it wasn't just academics that drew Ali to Ole Miss. She had a vision of finding love, the kind of Southern romance that would lead to a fairy tale wedding and a family of her own. That fall, she met Brandon Thiesfeld, a student from Fort Worth, Texas. She fell hard and fast. Brandon, on the other hand, wasn't exactly on the same page. Their relationship was more of a casual, on-again, off-again type of thing. While Ali dreamed of something serious, her friends could see the truth. She was far more invested in Brandon than he was in her. Fast forward to the summer of 2019, Ali was preparing for her senior year at Ole Miss. She invited her parents, Cindy and Keith, to visit her apartment near campus, hoping for some quality time before the school year kicked off. They brought home-cooked meals, laughed, and made memories. Ali even tried to convince them to stay a little longer, but they had to leave. It was the last time they would ever see their daughter alive. On July 19, 2019, Ali decided to unwind at the Square, a bar and restaurant in Oxford, Mississippi. It was a typical night out with friends. Surveillance footage caught her leaving the bar around 11:52 p.m. and getting into an Uber. That was the last time anyone saw her alive. Allie went back to her apartment, but just 30 minutes later, she received a call from Brandon. He was waiting outside. Unsuspecting, Allie got into his car. He drove her 40 minutes away to a remote location, pulled her out of the vehicle, and mercilessly shot her 8 times. The next morning, July 20th, police officers patrolling Sardis Lake, a secluded area often used for camping and fishing, stumbled upon a gruesome scene, a young woman's body riddled with gunshot wounds. A purse nearby held her ID, Alexandria Kostial. 11 shell casings littered the ground. Back in Missouri, Allie's parents received the devastating news. Investigators immediately searched Allie's apartment for clues. Her Apple Watch, synced with her phone, provided a lead. The last person she spoke to, Brandon Teesfeld. That made him the prime suspect. When police contacted Brandon, he dodged them. He was too busy to meet on Saturday. Same excuse on Sunday. By Monday, when he was supposed to come in for questioning, he was a no-show. That's when things got serious. Tracking his phone, authorities discovered he was on Interstate 55, heading toward Fort Worth, Texas. He was running. A warrant was issued for his arrest, and police were on high alert for his distinctive license plate. Soon, Brandon was located at a gas station in Memphis, Tennessee, where he was taken into custody for Allie's murder. Once extradited to Mississippi, detectives dug deeper. Friends of Brandon recalled an unsettling moment. Just days after the murder, he placed his gun on a table while drinking beer, as if daring them to notice. This clue led authorities to the murder weapon, confirming their suspicions. But what was his motive? As investigators unraveled the toxic relationship between Allie and Brandon, they made a chilling discovery. Text messages between them revealed that Allie had believed their relationship was more serious than it was. And when she told Brandon she might be pregnant, he snapped. A series of angry messages followed, with Brandon demanding she get an abortion and making it crystal clear he wanted nothing to do with the child. When she refused to comply, he resorted to the most heinous act possible. By August 2019, Brandon was formally charged. Prosecutors presented the murder weapon, matching shell casings, and, most damning of all, a letter Brandon had written to his father, full of disturbing statements pointing to his guilt. Despite the mounting evidence, he initially pleaded not guilty. His father even publicly defended him. However, reality caught up with him. In the end, overwhelmed by the evidence, Brandon took a plea deal to avoid the death penalty. He stood in court and admitted to killing Allie Kostial. In a final act of performative regret, he wrote a letter to his parents expressing remorse. But his cold and calculated actions had already spoken volumes. Now Brandon Teesfeld sits in prison, serving a life sentence. He'll have a chance for a parole when he turns 65, but does he deserve it?